Good morning, everybody. My name is George Matisick. Welcome to Share Food Program. Thank you. I just wanted to start with a couple recognitions. First of all, of course, thanking the governor for being here today and everything he has done to help support organizations like us at Share Food Program as our governor. I also want to thank a number of our partner organizations here today. We've got Hunger Free Pennsylvania, Stuart Haniff, Feeding Pennsylvania, who actually administers the LFPA program. Our partner organizations, all of our food pantries, where are you at? All right. To Share's funders at a time of great disruption, we stand on your shoulders. We so appreciate you continuing your support at a time when we need it more than ever. So thank you to all of our funders. I want to thank Share's staff for a moment, particularly, yes. Particularly Jess Batista and Amanda Ruffner, who helped put this on today. As you may know, we are opening our Delaware County warehouse tomorrow. And so, for many organizations, putting on two events like this in a year would be a lot. We did two events in 2 days. So thank you to the whole Share team. I also want to acknowledge our local representatives who couldn't be here today. First of all, of course, our mayor, Sherelle Parker, our councilman Curtis Jones, State Rep Ronnie Green, State Senator Vince Hughes, and Congressman Dwight Evans. And then finally, I just wanted to acknowledge our board of directors here at Share Food Program, who in this time have been both fearless and principled. At a time when those are probably the two most important attributes that we as nonprofits need to continue to demonstrate. And nobody demonstrates that more than our board chair, Tracy Spector. Thank you, Tracy. So since 1986, Share Food Program has existed to provide basic nutrition to Philadelphia region's most vulnerable families. We're currently serving more than 500,000 people per month in the greater Philadelphia area, more than half of which are children. Day in and day out, the team here at Share Food Program has risen to that challenge with two basic tenets literally written on our backs: that food is a human right and that hunger is a solvable problem. And while there have been times in the last century that these beliefs have been nearly universally understood, these basic beliefs have come under attack in recent months by our own federal government, threatened by rising food prices brought on by arbitrary tariffs, threatened by an attack on core social service programs like SNAP, Medicare, Medicaid, and threatened, like what recently happened to us, the outright breaking of a signed deal. In our case, with the White House abandoning the LFPA program, a program merely intended for food banks like us to partner with local farmers to provide food to our partner organizations and those in need. The need here at our food bank, Share Food Program, has risen over 120% in the last 3 years. The LFPA program was designed to provide some level of relief for the 14 food banks like us across the Commonwealth who are serving that rising need. And we had a signed deal with the federal government. Nutritious Pennsylvania-grown food through partner farms and producers like those who are going to be joining us today. And again, we had a signed deal. We had a deal with the federal government, President Trump. You had a deal with Pennsylvania farmers putting food on our tables. You had a deal with food banks serving 67 counties trying to alleviate poverty. And above all, Mr. President, you had a deal with the American people, and you broke your word. Part of the deal. But as everyone knows, people of Pennsylvania are resilient. We are fighters. I see that as I look around the room today as a lot of our partner organizations who have fought at this time. And nobody embodies that more than the person who wakes up fighting for Pennsylvania's every waking moment of his day and that is our governor, Josh Shapiro.
Really good. Really good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, George. Thank you, George. I'll tell you what, Cher is blessed to have George at the helm. Philly is blessed to have George here solving problems. And Lori and I feel blessed that we've been able to be here to not only volunteer, but to get to know so many of the people who make Cher such an extraordinary place of solving that solvable problem of hunger. The people who come here and who do good, righteous work every day. The people who care deeply about their neighbors. And George, thank you for your leadership, and thank you to all of the staff and all of the volunteers who make Cher hum along and who make Cher do the incredible work they do. I need to take a moment and thank, as you did, your board chair and someone who's been a friend of me and Lori for 2 decades, and that's Tracy Spector. She came together with Cher and said, this is a solvable problem, and we want to use our capacity, our ability to go out and make a difference in life. And Tracy, what you've done here is really amazing, and we are blessed to have you in our community doing this work. So thank you to you and the board. Thank you. There's great promise and purpose in this place, but there wouldn't be any food in this place but for Pennsylvania farmers. And we're joined today by 2 wonderful farmers from Pennypack Farms near Montco, a place where Lori and I like to walk on the trail and try and be incognito as much as we can as we walk around the farm. And Brian Campbell Farms up in Columbia County, about 2 hours from here. Just 2 of the more than 100 farms that supply our food banks all across Pennsylvania. There is noble work in feeding people. It brings us together and allows us to serve others. But that work to feed others, it requires investment, both private investment, as we referenced earlier today, and also investment from our state and our federal government. It takes all of us to make sure people don't go to bed hungry at night. The state is doing its part. I'm here today to talk about the failure of the federal government to hold up its end of the deal. I've been drawn to service, and I'm grateful for the kind comments that George made. Been drawn to service because of my fundamental belief that each of us has some responsibility to do our part. In fact, my faith teaches me that no one is required to complete the task, but neither are we free to refrain from it. It's not on any one individual here to make sure everyone gets fed, but it is on all of us to do our part to make sure people don't go to bed hungry at night. That is what calls me to serve, and that is what is clearly present in this place of Cher and in this place across our Commonwealth of farmers who are doing that noble work of feeding people. Since 2022, Pennsylvania food banks like Cher have come to expect critical funding from the federal government in an initiative referenced before by George, LFPA, known as the Local Food Purchase Assistance Program. Our Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, led by the great, and I stress the word great, Secretary Russell Redding, who joins us here today, and you should clap for Secretary Redding. A farmer himself and someone who cares so deeply about the nobility of the work farmers do in feeding hungry people all across Pennsylvania. Secretary Redding and his team at Ag, they administer this program known as LFPA, that essentially connects farmers to food banks and drives out those dollars to make sure farmers get paid for the food that they provide a food bank like Cher. We keep every dollar we receive from the federal government right here in our Commonwealth so that we can do as much possible good to support our farmers and our ag industry. Back in December, led by Secretary Redding, the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture signed a 3-year contract with the United States Department of Agriculture, with USDA, to continue the LFPA program. This was a contract signed, and the terms were for 3 years. That contract stated that the federal government would pay Pennsylvania farmers $13 million over those 3 years so they could continue to supply our food banks in Pennsylvania, and so our food banks like Share could go out and make sure hungry folks got the food that they so needed. On March 7th, we received a notice from the USDA that the Trump administration had decided to illegally and abruptly cancel that 3-year contract that was only 4 months underway. They didn't explain why, but in the letter to Secretary Redding, they literally wrote, and I quote, "This does not align with agency priorities." The United States Department of Agriculture believes that it does not align with their priorities to pay Pennsylvania farmers to produce food to feed hungry people. Let that sink in for a moment, okay? I don't get that. I don't get what the hell their priorities are if not feeding people and taking care of our farmers. Because what that decision in effect did was it ripped away critical funding from 189 farms across Pennsylvania and made it harder to feed hungry people here in southeastern Pennsylvania and across our Commonwealth. I've met with so many of those farmers who've been impacted, folks like Brian and Julie, who you'll hear from in a moment. For many of those farmers, the LFPA represented between 10 and 15% of their annual market share. So even if the Trump administration doesn't care about feeding hungry people, they purport to care about farmers. And they just ripped away 10 to 15% of their market share. Oh, and by the way, at the same time, jacking up these tariffs, which are closing markets to our farmers. They've made lives worse for Pennsylvania farmers. They talk a good game, but look at their actions. As Maya Angelou famously said, when someone tells you who they are, believe them the first time. Not only that, this decision to illegally cut this contract, to illegally break this contract, cuts critical funding that provides 4.4 million meals across just the greater Philadelphia area for food pantries like Share to give out to families in need. Then, on March 25th, 2 weeks after we got that termination notice, I directed Secretary Redding from the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture to appeal the federal decision. Secretary Redding and I have repeatedly asked the USDA to reverse course and uphold its contract with Pennsylvania farmers. We actually tried to follow their internal process, they meaning USDA. They have an appeals process. We went through it under the capable hands of Secretary Redding. Then in April, Secretary Redding personally sent a letter to the USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins. And last month, after reaching out multiple times, Secretary Redding actually got in his car, went to D.C. to meet with Secretary Rollins' team in person. But at every single opportunity, the USDA failed to respond on how they plan to honor the deal that they made with our farmers here in Pennsylvania. In fact, while we were going through the entire appeals process, Secretary Redding happened to come to Pennsylvania for some other stated purpose. And she said things about LFPA that were simply not true. I'm not sure if she was misinformed, I know she's new at this, or if she was just making a whole lot of stuff up. But she said that Pennsylvania was sitting on, quote, tens of millions of dollars in our food bank. Okay, that's not true. Let me explain. It's not even possible that what she said was true, because as everybody here knows, the LFPA initiative works as a reimbursement program. So we wouldn't have money coming here to sit in our coffers. In fact, we don't get a dime from the federal government under this initiative unless we first spend the money, unless we first lay out the money, and then the secretary and his team have to provide documentation on which farmers got paid and where the food went to which food bank. So listen, we have exhausted all options to be able to resolve this matter simply through dialogue. And I'm tired of waiting for someone to stand up for our farmers and our food banks. That task falls to us. The USDA and the Trump administration ignored our farmers, and they ignored folks who are hungry here in Pennsylvania. That is why today I came back to Share to announce that just a couple hours ago, I filed a lawsuit in the Middle District of Pennsylvania against the USDA to get what we are owed here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This lawsuit calls on the USDA to simply honor its commitment to our farmers, to honor its commitment to folks who are hungry, and to simply follow the contract that they signed. Now listen, I went to law school. I'm your former attorney general, but you don't need to go to law school and you don't need to be an attorney general to know the basic legal doctrine of a deal is a deal. They made a deal with our farmers. They made a deal with places like Share. They made a deal with Pennsylvania, and they illegally broke it. And I think you all know me pretty well. I got a pretty good track record when I take Donald Trump to court. We're going to win this, and we're going to get our money back for the good people of Pennsylvania. We have tried over the last number of months to work behind the scenes, to try and work with the USDA to get this done, to have some dialogue with our members of Congress. In fact, I appealed to both Republican and Democratic members of our congressional delegation, because I would think, given our farmers more market share, feeding people who are hungry, that feels to me to be one of those common sense bipartisan things that we should all be able to agree on. Every single Republican congressional district or congressional district represented by a Republican in Pennsylvania has either a food bank or a farm that is funded by the LFPA. And so I appealed to these Republican congressmen. I said, your constituents are being hurt by this. I have to laugh. Instead of standing up for the people that they represent, they attacked me. Now listen, I mean, it's easy for me to brush off their nonsense. I deal with that every day. But it's not easy for hungry people to be fed when their congressman ignores them. It's not easy for our farmers to be able to make up that market share that our congressman made sure was taken away from them. This is serious stuff. This shouldn't be about playing political games. This is about making sure our farmers have the work they need and folks who are hungry get fed. George said it right. Tracy and Shannon have said this to me before. This is one of those solvable problems. It requires resources, people who give a damn, farmers to do the noble work that they love doing. And it requires everybody to hold up their end of the bargain. The federal government didn't do that. And so that's why I'm forced to take them to court. While this is going on, I want you to know that here in Pennsylvania, your Secretary of Agriculture, your governor, and by the way, a bipartisan group of lawmakers, we give a damn about our farmers and feeding people who are hungry. At the same time, the federal government is cutting funding for agriculture. We're increasing funding for agriculture. In fact, this budget that I proposed lawmakers are going to vote on over the next few weeks again increases our commitment to our farmers, fully funds the Farm Bill. Make sure places like Share get the resources they need. This is common sense stuff. I know you know that, and I know you care deeply about this work. That's why I came here today, to make this announcement in your presence, to be here with all of you, to let you know that I've got your back, to let you know that I give a damn, to let you know that I'm not going to let politicians in D.C. play politics with people's lives here in Pennsylvania. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to do what's right. I'm going to do my part in this, and I'm going to stand shoulder to shoulder with Share and our farmers as we do it. So I think one of the most noble things you can do in life is feed people. And we have someone here who feeds people every day, one of our great farmers named Brian Campbell. I want you to meet him. I want you to hear what he does every day with his hands on his farm. I want you to see the connection between what happens on a farm 2 hours away and how boxes get packed here at Share and how people get fed here in Philly. It's all connected, and Brian Campbell is a key part of that. Ladies and gentlemen, our farmer, Brian Campbell, is going to come up and say a few words. Thanks.
Good morning. Thank you for all you do. There's no way we can get fresh fruits and vegetables and the food that the food insecure needs without you folks. And the programs and the system that's in place across the country is second to none. It's unbelievable. I got started during COVID and the pandemic, began providing fresh fruits and vegetables to Pennsylvania food banks on all four corners of the state. And truly we're delivering some of the boxes myself to truly understand what is food insecure. And I learned a lot. And there's a lot of people out there that need the help. And the farmers in Pennsylvania have a lot to offer. A little bit of help from the financial end allows that to happen. Like you said in the beginning, I don't get it.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. But with that being said, through my experience, I've gained a deep appreciation for what food insecurity truly means, whether someone is falling on hard times or simply less fortunate than others. The number of people who volunteer their time to support the food insecure is truly remarkable and inspiring. Being able to provide food for the hungry is important, but even more impactful is the opportunity to change lives through health and nutrition. Programs that prioritize access to fresh fruits and vegetables for the food insecure are vital. Initiatives like LFPA, the Local Food Purchase Assistance, have made a real difference, although they were only a couple months, and hopefully we're going to get some more back. They allowed farmers to secure enough funding to cover the costs of harvest, packaging, and transportation, critical steps that often prevent fresh produce from reaching the food banks. Offering just enough support to make it feasible for farmers to help, and that has made a difference. Looking forward to it coming back.
It will. Thank you so much.
I appreciate all you do. Thank you.
It's my pleasure now to bring up our Secretary of Agriculture, Russell Redding, our leader in this effort. Mr. Secretary.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, good morning. Good morning, everybody. It is always an honor. I'm always humbled when I step into a food bank, right? Because I'm reminded of how fortunate we are, right? To live in a state that's got an amazing sort of leader and sees a vision for both food and ag, that we have the capacity as a state to produce things and package them and distribute them to folks who are in need. We've got policies that really speak to the values of this state. So I'm humbled, but also humbled by the folks who I know I'm standing with are those who hustle, right, to make it happen. I mean, this doesn't happen just in the convenience of a box, right? That's why I appreciate Julie and Brian and the work that they do. And anytime you can stand between the beef and the peanut butter with a governor who cares, that's a good day. It's a good day, but it doesn't happen just because you and I like it. It happens because a lot of folks are committed to it, and they see opportunity in this work. I want to say thank you to Karen Long Earl. I mean, there's a lot of folks who give an appreciation of thank you, and George, Karen, just to say, I mean, listen, it is a skeleton crew with an amazing sort of capacity, right, to administer the USDA programs and the state programs, and to do that with all the professionalism and kind care that she can provide, and humility to the staff. So Karen, thank you for what you do always and every day. As I thought about today and sort of where we are, certainly in Share and its Nice Roots Farm, I thought about the words. And that really is sort of what our mission is in agriculture, right? It's sharing what we do and these amazing sort of good roots. That is what agriculture is. And organizations like Share that remind us of what it means to be rooted, not just in the soil, but in the shared values and the shared purpose of feeding people. And in Pennsylvania, we know that our farms are the roots of our values and purpose and key to the solutions and in our shared strength. And to the governor's point, this is exactly why the decision by the USDA to terminate the LFPA is so troubling, and why the governor is taking the action he spoke of today. I want to say thank you to Governor Shapiro. Listen, it's work. What you see today is organic in that it's the first time that I met him. It was a conversation about food and agriculture. And to have it now inside of our economic development strategy, right? To have it recognized inside the budget in a very prominent way. So this effort of supporting both the farms and communities and growing food and distributing food and making sure that we've got the capacity on both ends of that is because of him. It's the work and the vision. I've never been with a governor in my five governors that I've worked with who've been more passionate about agriculture and more sincere in making sure that we do the right things, we keep investing. So Governor, thank you. Agriculture is about nice roots. But you need to nurture those roots, as we know. The easiest day in agriculture is the day you plant something. I know that. It's the next 100 days that count. So when Brian puts that crop in the field or Julie plants that garden, right, in the work, it's easy. Not really. It's easier. So I think about that journey of what we do in this effort, right? But it's those roots in agriculture. It's the combination of what we put together with effort, with food, and the science makes all that possible. We see the work and commitment of the governor in this budget that he spoke of. And I will add to that things like the State Food Purchase Program and the PASS program. Everybody here thinks they're normal? No. I say it because every state doesn't have a State Food Purchase Program. Right. Every state doesn't have a PASS program. So when you talk about federal actions, they are even more significant in other states because they don't have some of the foundational pieces. We do. We're proud of that. But as others are looking to cut back on the food program, to take away SNAP benefits, to cut contracts to farmers, reduce investments in conservation, the list goes on, the governor's investing in agriculture. At SHARE, we certainly recognize the great farmers like Brian and Julie. And they represent just a sampling of the other farms. We've got a lot of Brians and a lot of Julies who have benefited from the LFPA program. And it's important to see their face and the work that they do because there's 187 others who look just like them, who are putting stuff in these food banks. So when we invest in local farms like the Campbell Farms and Pennypack, we're not just investing in what's harvested. We're investing in what's possible. We're saying that our food system should value people. It should lift up the hands that plant and pick and pack. That food grown here by Pennsylvanians for Pennsylvanians matters. For when a program like LFPA is terminated without warning, without conversation, it sends a chilling message that those roots don't matter, that the communities depending on them are invisible. And our word to our farmers doesn't matter. And that's why I'm proud to stand here with the governor today, because it does matter. It matters a lot, that local foods and local jobs and local farmers matter. All of those local communities matter. Pennsylvania will not stand by idly while the federal promises are broken. We will fight for the farmers. We'll fight for the food banks. Keep showing up, hearing directly from farmers in the charitable food system as we've done, their families, and the workers. And each story that we hear is clear. This wasn't just about dollars. This was about trust and commitments and communities. Because when we invest in local agriculture, we're investing in something deeper than food. We're investing in the health, the stability, and the future of the Commonwealth. And we're going to continue to fight for our farms every single day so we can keep them doing what they do best with their nice roots. So standing with the governor, it's important. We appreciate his voice and his leadership. But any day that we can stand with our farmers is a good day. And it's worth showing up for, and I want to say to each of you, thank you for what you do. And this is a fight that's worth showing up for every single day. So thank you. Speaking of nice roots, Julie McCabe from Pennypack Farm to offer a few words. They do an incredible job of planting good food, good roots right here in this region. So, Julie, welcome. Thank you. Good.
Thank you. Hey, Julie.
Hi, nice to see you.
You too. You too.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julie, and I am the Executive Director of Pennypack Farm and Education Center. We are a 13-acre vegetable farm in Montgomery County, and our hardworking farmers are growing 150,000 pounds of food, fresh food, every year for our region. We're so fortunate to have the leadership of Governor Shapiro and the speakers that we have today to talk about these important programs. Pennypack Farm has been proud to see major growth in our produce giving capabilities, thanks to funding dollars like LFPA that allow us to plan, harvest, and give intentionally, and help us turn surplus into nourishment and strengthen the entire food system. Our produce giving program has grown tremendously, from just over 8,000 pounds donated in 2017 to more than 26,000 pounds given in 2024. We give directly to local hunger relief organizations who distribute it to neighbors facing food insecurity. And some of our partners are here in the room. Thank you for what you do. We have strong, long-standing partnerships with these local food pantries. And in some of those pantries, we're the only source of fresh produce that their clients receive. We're delivering this quality produce usually within a day of harvest, using our community volunteers to bring the vegetables directly from our farm to the pantries when they need it. These programs don't just feed people, they connect people. Public funding makes this all possible. It supports farms, reduces food waste, and makes sure that everyone, no matter their income, has access to healthy, fresh-grown food right here in Pennsylvania. Losing critical funding like LFPA would hurt farms and undermine the goals that we have at Pennypack Farm to build food security in our communities. Thank you, Governor Shapiro, for fighting for this important issue, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Great job. Thank you, Julie. I want to thank you all very much. I want to get the chance to speak with all of you, but I want to take a few questions from the media on this, and then we'll get the chance to talk. Yes. Good morning.
A question about the state budget, the increase in agriculture funding. Can you go over how much it's been increased and whether any of that money is being allocated to supplement LFPA or the food delivery programs that were canceled by the USDA?
Sure. I'll walk through each of them. We can give you a full chart of every line from our agriculture spending. And by the way, I just have to say, I saw a beautiful tribute to your brother on TV the other night. I want to thank him for his service to this nation. So, yeah. I want to be clear. Every line in our agriculture budget has increased over my last two budgets and will increase again if the legislature passes my ag budget as is. Everything from funding directly to our farmers, to our first in the nation Ag Innovation Fund, which puts technology in the hands of farmers so they can produce more crops, to making sure when farmers get hit with something terrible like avian influenza, we're the only state in the entire country with a fund to make them whole after they've lost their flocks. So we are increasing our funding. I want to be very, very clear about something. Whether it's LFPA or SNAP or Medicaid or any of the other things the federal government is cutting right now to make it harder for poor folks to get health care or get fed, we do not have the ability to backfill that in the state. The federal government in Washington wants to cut funding for our farmers or for hungry folks or for poor folks who are working, who need desperately to have health care for them or their disabled child. We don't have the ability to backfill it. It's on them. Those are the decisions they're making in Washington, D.C. right now. I hope that this is a wake-up call to our senators and our congressmen that they got to stand up for the people of Pennsylvania as opposed to tearing away the vital supports that they have, that they've come to rely on, and that they so desperately need, because the state will not be there to backfill it. You better start with a sports question, otherwise I'm not asking.
Not this time, Governor.
All right.
But somewhat related to that, though.
Yeah.
So if this lawsuit isn't successful, though, is your administration prepared to find other revenue sources to keep this program up and running to the conclusion of the
I
contract?
mean, I've been successful at every lawsuit I've filed against the Trump administration's cuts to Pennsylvania. I plan to be successful in this one as well. And as I said a moment ago, the Commonwealth does not have the ability to backfill these federal cuts. If our federal representatives choose to rip away these vital supports from Pennsylvanians, it's on them.
Could the Pennsylvania General Assembly and you team up in some sort of fashion? I know maybe it'll take time to find a legislative remedy if it's not successful, but...
Yeah, I plan on being successful in this. Anything else?
2028. One more question, unrelated, but it's about the budget.
Yeah.
Specifically SEPTA funding. So how are those negotiations going? Are you and Democrats prepared to possibly hold up the budget if you don't get bipartisan?
Look, I have proposed funding for mass transit, including SEPTA, over the last 2 years. The kind of funding that would stave off the cuts and the kind of funding that would stave off the dramatic fare hikes on Pennsylvanians who rely on mass transit. And I recognize we're here in Philly, which is the largest mass transit agency in the state. But understand, this isn't just a big city problem. Every single one of our 67 counties relies on mass transit, whether it's to get to work, get to a medical appointment, get their kids wherever they need to go. Mass transit is vital. And by the way, vital to our economy as an economic engine of our Commonwealth. I have asked lawmakers to pass my budget on mass transit several times before. In fact, the House of Representatives, led by, I know your local representative, Ronnie Green, and other Democrats, passed the funding for mass transit 3 times already. And the Senate has failed to bring it up even once. The Senate asked if I'd consider putting funding for roads and bridges together with mass transit. I was already planning to do that. Happy to do that. They've asked us to consider lots of different revenue sources for mass transit, and I'm open to those that have been proposed. What we can't do is nothing. Last year, the legislature left town without doing anything on this. And so I flexed funds to be able to keep SEPTA afloat until June 30th of this year, giving lawmakers more time to come together. I'm the eternal optimist. I mean, I'm a governor with a divided legislature. I was the only governor in the country last year with a divided legislature. I think there's 2 now, others across the country. I know that in order to get a bill to my desk, it requires votes from Democrats and Republicans. And I'm working hard with both sides to find common ground on this and many other issues. And we're going to keep working at it until we can get a deal done.
Governor, in response to a federal threat, several healthcare systems across Pennsylvania have stopped providing gender-affirming care, including to some adults. Are you able to comment on that?
I didn't hear the beginning of your question.
In response to federal threats, several healthcare systems across Pennsylvania have announced they'll stop providing gender-affirming care. Are you able to comment on that?
Look, we see the threats coming from the federal government. I've talked, I'm not going to get in my private conversation, but I've talked to many, if not all of the major healthcare CEOs across this Commonwealth. I know that they're trying to navigate their way through this in a humane way, in a way that respects the rights and the needs of all the people they serve, of all Pennsylvanians. And we're going to continue to have dialogue in that and work through it together.
At this point, Pennsylvania still allows Medicaid to cover those services. If there were retaliation threatened by the president, would you push back on that?
Yeah, I mean, come on. I'm not going to be threatened or bullied by the federal government. I've proven that over years. My job, and I took an oath of office to protect the good people of Pennsylvania. My job is to follow my oath. My job is to protect all Pennsylvanians. And I'm going to continue to do that work, and I won't be bullied by anybody. Yep.
Pennsylvania has a large number of Hispanic farmers. How are they being affected?
Look, I think everybody's being affected. I know that we've got many Hispanic and Latino farmers, and by the way, many Hispanic and Latino individuals who benefit from the food that Share gives out. I think the need in the Latino and Hispanic community is great, as it is in many other communities. I try not to kind of slice and dice our communities into different populations. I instead focus on meeting the needs of all Pennsylvanians, lifting everyone up, making sure everybody has what they need, making sure our Hispanic and Latino farmers and those that they serve get the help they need along with everybody else. It is critically important that we meet this need. That's why I'm suing the federal government to get what is owed to us, to make sure they honor this contract. John.
Governor, actually one sports-related one that I think ties
Great.
government.
John always asks me a sports question.
Government-related, I think that's I'm curious to hear your thoughts on. Yesterday, State Representative Jesse Topper and Perry Stanbaugh sent out a co-sponsorship memo about their plans to introduce legislation to provide protections for student athletes receiving compensation for their name, image, and likeness, NIL, which
Yeah.
you're familiar with.
Yeah.
They made the case right now that there's, quote, no state legal structure that exists, and they believe it should. Is that something you think should exist?
Yeah.
And what would that framework look like? Should you? what
So
would you support?
I haven't seen Leader Topper's bill, so I can't comment on it specifically. I'll take you at your word in terms of the general views that they have. I think that the situation with NIL combined with the transfer portal is out of control. And I think we need real reform in that space. I want to be clear. I think student athletes should be able to get paid. I think student athletes should be able to have the freedom to pick which college they want to attend and where they want to bring their talents. So those underlying principles have to be part of this. But what we have to do is make sure there is some ability for all schools to be able to compete in this space in all sports, and that it not be a situation where we end up losing athletics for both men and women as a result of this process. The NIL can drive a lot of dollars into one particular sport and choke off others, or one particular area and choke off others. I think it is important that we're in a position where we're able to really compete. You think about my first love in sports of basketball, right? We're privileged to be here in Philly with, historically, I think some of the best hoops of all time with Big Five basketball. But let's be honest, there's a real difference if you're LaSalle or you're Villanova in order to be able to put an NIL package out there and recruit the best talent. And with the transfer portal, allowing student athletes to go to a different school every year if they like, to effectively follow the money and not be able to hold them in one place, that puts some of our schools at a real disadvantage. Think more broadly across the Commonwealth. We got a powerhouse in football in Penn State, as an example. Powerhouse not just in this Commonwealth, but across the country. I don't want to do anything that limits their ability to compete. What I want to do is see how we can get schools to be lifted up. I know that there's been a lot of talk about a broader settlement in this space in the NCAA. I think that's a piece of it. I've talked to Senator Booker, who's been a leader on this at the federal level. I know they're thinking about something to do, but I certainly wouldn't be opposed to exploring what we could do here in the Commonwealth. And again, I haven't seen the specifics of what Leader Topper is proposing, but that would certainly be something I'd want to work with him on. Okay?
The Trump administration rolled out a list of quote-unquote sanctuary jurisdictions that would lose funding for their immigration policies. The list disappeared from the website.
Yeah, how about that?
What do you think of the chaos?
I mean, what do I think? These guys don't know how to govern. I think it's just like, you take a look. By the way, I mean, there is a serious point here. I mean, over the last 4 months, what has defined the federal government? Absolute, total chaos at every level. Rising prices, screwing over farmers, shutting down markets for Pennsylvania businesses, tariffs that are leading to higher consumer costs, and making it much, much more difficult here at home. Around the globe, President Trump took an oath of office, and on that day, he was the leader of the free world. And he seems to be working overtime to relegate us to being a hemispheric power in the world. This is really dangerous, chaotic, scary stuff. Juxtapose that with Pennsylvania, a divided government, where we don't have chaos, we have calm, where we solve problems, where we come together and actually get stuff done. Do we get everything done at once? No, but we work together. We compromise. We look out for our businesses, for our farmers, for folks who are hungry, making sure people have health care when they need it, making sure that kids get a great quality education. I think there's a real difference between what you've seen at the federal level and what we're seeing play out here in the Commonwealth, in a divided Commonwealth politically, but yet a Commonwealth where we're coming together to solve problems. So it's not a shock to me that they put out a list of these so-called sanctuary jurisdictions, which, by the way, included Adams County, Pennsylvania, right? And then they had to rip it down because they realized they didn't do the homework. I don't know if their, ChatGPT wasn't working that day or what, but these guys are like the gang that can't shoot straight. So what do I make of it? They got real work to do here, and they've got to be serious about their work. If they've got a perspective that they want to bring to bear, they should bring that to bear, and they should have a thoughtful conversation with the mayor, with others, about their views. I have tried where I can to work with this administration, as we did just last week, to save thousands of steel jobs and strengthen the steel industry in Pennsylvania. But as I'm doing here today, I will not be afraid to stand up to them when they do something that undermines the rights and interests of Pennsylvania. And I sure as heck won't shy away from standing up and speaking out when they inject chaos in people's lives. And I'm going to work hard every day to solve problems and inject calm in people's lives and get stuff done. Thanks, everybody.
You all with CMS? I'm Daniel. I'm at Tom's from USDA. Where I was at USDA.
Shares funders at a time of great disruption, we stand on your shoulders. We so appreciate you continuing your support at a time when we need it more than ever. So thank you to all of our funders. As you may know, we are opening our Delaware County warehouse tomorrow. And so for many organizations, putting on 2 events like this in a year would be a lot. We did 2 events. And then finally, I just wanted to acknowledge our board of directors here at Share Food Program, who in this time have been both fearless and principled at a time when those are probably Shapiro.
I'll tell you what, Cher is blessed to have George at the helm. Yeah. Philly is blessed to have George here side by side. Nora and I feel blessed. Thank you to all of the staff and all of the volunteers who make Cher hum along and who make Cher do the incredible work they do. I need to take a moment and thank, as you did, your board chair and someone who's been that supply our food banks all across Pennsylvania. There is noble work in feeding people. It brings us together and allows us to serve others. But that work to feed others, it requires investment. I'm here today to talk about the failure of the federal government to hold up its end of the deal. I've been drawn to service, and I'm grateful for the kind comments that George made. December, led by Secretary Reddick, Pennsylvania Department Farmer Brian Campbell.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for all you do. There's no way we can get fresh fruits and vegetables and the food that the food insecure needs. Vegetables to Pennsylvania food banks on all four corners of the state. And truly we're delivering some of the boxes myself to truly understand what is food insecure. And I learned a lot. It doesn't make any sense at all. But with that being said, through my experience, I've gained a deep appreciation for what food insecurity truly means. Whether someone is falling on hard times or simply less.
Hey, listen, it is a skeleton crew with amazing sort of capacity, right, to administer the USDA programs and the state programs that do that with all the professionalism. And that really is sort of what our mission is in agriculture, right, is sharing what we do with these amazing sort of good roots. That is what agriculture is. And organizations like SHARE that remind us.
Possible. It supports farms, reduces food waste, and makes sure that everyone, no matter their income, has access to healthy, fresh grown food right here in Pennsylvania. This important issue.